Hi everyone, it's Jackie Smurden here in Derwent Studio, and today we're going to look at watercolour pencils. So it's going to be a quick sketch and we can try out some textures. I thought a good subject would be a nest with some eggs in it. So I've just loosely sketched in some eggs, which you probably can't see, using a very pale, almost like apricot colour, this one. Now I'm going to shade very gently with my Blue Acorn watercolour pencils, and I thought I'd stick to the blues. The reason I use the watercolour pencil around the edges is because when I dampen these down, that will disappear to a certain degree, but it will still just define the edges. And it's like a warm, almost orange really, it's a warm yellow, peachy yellow, which could blend into the blue, making some of it slightly green maybe. We'll find out in a minute. And then I've also got slightly deeper Derwent Intense green aquamarine. So I'm just going to put this on the edges of the eggs where I think there could potentially be some shadow. So I'm using the side of it, put some behind where the egg is in front, same on this one. It's quite small, this. And I've picked up a brown brush. It's a size 10 panache brush, but realistically they're all different sizes, so just use whichever one suits you and your painting size. Just going to wet that, but I don't want it to be a sopping wet brush. I'm just going to take some off on my studio roll. Let's start with the one in the background. Just enough water to blend that pencil, keeping a nice soft look to it. Let's see, can we blend next to that one? Or is it going to run? Doesn't really matter if it runs in. Getting some nice textures there. I feel like I'll need to leave a little gap, so just keep that. We'll wash over it again in a minute, give it a bit more depth. It's the thing about watercolour pencils, they're no different to painting in watercolour. You can layer them. We're always in a hurry, aren't we? So do your first little bit of painting, let it dry. So go away, do something else, come back to it, have a cup of tea, whatever it is you want to do. When you come back in a few minutes, it'll be nice and dry for you to work over again. So I've got a mixture of Derwent pencils here and a brand called Blue Acorn, which are really nice actually. So I've got some nice colours going on there. So I just look into the side to see how wet they are. They are definitely starting to dry already, so I can't add any more. The one at the back, funnily enough, isn't drying. So there's one thing you can do, is craft knife and the tip of your pencil, whilst nothing else is on here wet, you can just speckle your eggs. There we go, let's try that one over there. So this one at the back is much, much wetter than the ones at the front. And I do need to let that dry. I mustn't touch any of this, because if I touch it I'm going to smudge it. So if I just zoom in for you there, got the beginnings of some eggs in a nest there, and I've just got to let that dry. So I'm going to start with a Derwent watercolour pencil in raw sienna, and I'm just going to draw in some wiggly lines to suggest we've got a nest. For those of you who like pencils, you will find your own way of layering, what marks to use, cross-hatching, etc. I'm just putting this very light layer on first. Of course, you can just use the side of the pencil if you want to be a little bit more general about the colour. This is just the way I use the pencils. There are many different ways to use them. Before I put any darker colours on, I think I might add some masking fluid. Having practiced first on a piece of paper, just trying to get these lines in. Of course, I'm putting them on top of the colour. So most of these lines will be raw sienna, not white. So I've popped some masking fluid along where there may be a branch where the light could possibly be hitting it, just to start us off. So the masking fluid's not quite dry, but it's workably dry for me to work and add some darks without touching it, just down in this area. I will just pop in a little bit of black in amongst these, not too much. Can save some of that for the end, I think. Let's just get some little lines in there. Whilst the rest of it is drying, we can work on the branch. So just going to make this up a little bit. I'm going to have a purple just as a base layer. I've got a nice dark green here. The colours that you get in your packs are just worth experimenting with. In my previous video I swatched them out and turned them into sheep. That's quite fun, but you could choose your own style of swatching. Some people like just to do plain squares. Other people like to do little icons like trees, something like that. Whatever you like is the one you should do. So I'm just making some random lines, change to a more olivey green, so it's not quite as dark. You notice I haven't used any brown yet on the branch. Just waiting for this masking fluid to dry properly. It's getting there, this bit's dry. Right, I'll show you how to sort of work into that once we get some water on there. Now I might add some of the raw sienna in on the top of the branch, just to warm it up where the light would hit it. So I'm layering a little bit as I'm doing this. Just a little bit. As I said on my previous video, I am not an expert on using coloured pencils. When I learnt to draw with just probably an HB pencil, no colours involved. Colours can make it quite hard sometimes to see tones, So to bear that in mind, you need some dark and light values in your paintings. I'm now adding what is almost like a burnt sienna colour, which is the same as what's on the nest. So there are my twiggy bits. Just check the rest of this. So I'm just testing if it comes off my finger. It's not dry, but we're okay. So I'm going to go in and just try with the branches first to see what effects we get. So coming along this one here. Oh, way too much water. I have learnt with this, if you put too much water on, you end up with a mess. So just be aware, you don't want huge washes with this technique. This is a branch, so I'm going to try and give it a fairly harsh line at the bottom there. If your brush starts to muddy up with the colour, just give it a little rinse out. Take that colour off the page, just let it blend out. This is just masking fluid, which I can just take off because I don't want that piece there. Coming off this side. Going up to the masking fluid line, which is perhaps going to suggest some highlights, but it won't suggest highlights unless we go over it to create an edge above it. And that may not be enough colour there. So this is already fixed. This is what we learnt before. If you leave it too long, it will fix, and it's quite hard to then lift it and move it about. Inktense particularly is designed to sit and stay once you've got it on. Once it's dry, it's there. Although I did manage to lift a line through it, so it does move a little bit. So there we go, that's a branch idea. Now these are still damp. So one of the things you can do is get any pencil, coloured or otherwise, but I'm going to use my watercolour pencil, and take it through that wet paint, and whilst you're doing it, take some of the water off on a line, go for a walk with it, do some marks. This is just worth trying because it's quite a nice way to add some texture and potentially some twiggy bits. You're taking the damp wash off the area you've just dampened down, and where it's still within the wash, you're just adding a little bit of texture that perhaps gives it a little bit more depth. And this is drying quite quickly, so I'm not getting so much on this side. So let that dry fully and we'll do another wash over the top. Just double check these again. So these speckles on here, how would I get them off? Well, I just get my soft brush and attempt just to brush the ones off that we've finished with a completely dry brush. There we go, pigment has gone. I know if I touch those eggs again I'll lose those speckles, but I will add some shadows in a little bit. Right, so there we go. Let's layer up this nest a bit more. Let's throw some colours into it. So we started off with raw sienna. We then brought up the burnt sienna a little bit from the bottom. So I'm using crisscrosses, crosshatch, wiggly lines, whatever you think you like to use. Going to build that colour up. The nest, of course, in reality is not just brown, but brown's a pretty good colour to start with. Let's add some darker greens in. So obviously if I put a brush through all of this, it will wash it into one big mess, but harder I press with these watercolour pencils, more of a mark I'm going to leave behind, and I'm hoping that that will then suggest that there is some sort of structure going on in there. So I'm going to go back to my black again, just deepen this a little bit here. So I'm working on the nest whilst the branches are finishing drying, making sure that some pieces coming out like so. So I'm going to pick up ultramarine blue and just work into some of the gaps around the eggs. What I could have done is put the masking fluid over the eggs actually, and the beginning, just to suggest they're nestled a bit more, but that's fine. Just trying to suggest that they're down in a crevice here in this nest area. Put some blue on first. It's almost like negative painting, isn't it? Bringing out the depth of those eggs because I'm making it darker behind them. No, that's not dark enough, so we now need to go to, let's see, maybe we'll add a little bit of yeah, a little bit of a pinky hue, why not? As I say, you can get very carried away with these. Okay, back to a dark green. So the harder I press, the more likely it is that I'm going to leave a mark behind. And if I do a soft, shadowy, shady effect and I wash over it, that's more likely to disappear and float away. Okay. So picking up a smallish brush, not quite sure how this is going to work, so I'm going to use a very tiny brush just because I can, and so I will, and blend these shadowy ones out slightly around the egg area, so hard not to overwork it. Take that colour off around there. You don't have to dampen any of it, you can leave it purely as a pencil line if you want. I'm actually using a nylon brush for this because I don't want too much water on there. And as I'm working into it, I'm dragging the colours away and some lines, etc. So just to suggest they're in a little hollow. Let that egg area dry. So how are we doing with our branch? Yes, we're doing okay. So we could do another wash over the whole branch. So I'm going to go over it in this green on the top. It's interesting we use that sort of movement, it tends to start pulling off the masking fluid. So, and this paper is not particularly textured, but using this technique you really do see the paper grain coming through. And then a little bit more dark. Quite a strong green this. This is the thing I find a little bit difficult with pencils, is that if the colour's not quite right, you've got to spend quite a while blending pencils to tone it down or whatever you want to do with it. And whereas with a watercolour wash, I would have done all that already. So this is just a different way of working. Okay. So I'm going to do this as a wash again. Whoops, way too much water. Take that right up there. So I'm not losing the colours I've already put on, which you can still clearly see the lines under there, can't you? But as this is still wet, try that trick again with a pencil through the wash. Try a different colour. There we go. See, dragging the pencil takes some of the water with it. When it runs out, it just ends up continuing the line, which is quite fun. Let me just show you that with a nothing, just the end of a paintbrush. See, that works as well. Can you see that? It takes the colour off the wash, so you can get these lovely effects. So that was with the end of a brush, there's nothing on there, so you can still drag it even though there's absolutely no pigment, so you could use any pencil at all and it will do the trick even if it doesn't dissolve in the water. So that one's, some of them may be not working for you, then just run a brush through them. And if you really don't like it, just go on, wash it away. You're always going to be kept a little bit behind because it's a pencil, but that softened it right off, hasn't it? So let's just do the same thing along here. Take that colour right off. Pick up you find out which colours work for you in your style. This is a bit fussy, but I'm trying to show you lots of different things. It's beginning to look a bit more like a, well, vaguely like a mossy branch. There's a lot of detail in this, way too much for the size of the painting, but we're trying out different things, aren't we? So that's fine. Just wash that all through. Let's try dragging that one out. Not quite so much water on these. There you go, you get the idea. So put a nice dark, oh, it's a little bit bright, that one, that's trouble. A little bit bright, too much. Whoop. See, I'm now using it into the damp wash and you get much stronger effect. The only way you'll learn this is to try it. Really is important to try it. You can soon mix some colours to try and tone things down. I've got a bright green here, so let's just add some pinky red to it. Give me a nice depth on the bottom here, doesn't it? Let's try that over here as well. Bright green. And a little bit of red. It's the opposite, so there you go. Yep. course you can use your brush as you normally would to drag and splash. Talking of which, we haven't done any splashing, have we? So, picking up my brush and my pencil, pick up the pigment onto the end of your brush. Carefully protect your important area and splatter. Let's try that with a different, darker colour. Throw caution to the wind. It's going to be too bright. Who cares? So this is the darker green. I'll just keep that in this area, I think. There we go. That all needs to dry. You can see into the area here that I've just completed here makes this look too pale. Hopefully you can see that. So let's go working it in with some more black. And some colour. Trying to build up those tones. At this point, I think we just need to go for it. So I've got my damp brush. Just going to tickle the colours around. I'm going to use a random brush stroke rather than doing one big wash. Let's just see what happens if we do this first. You could wash it all at the same time. You're going to get all these merging colours, of course, which by their very nature mixing together will create a brown, as we were saying earlier about nest automatically look a bit brown, don't they? So this one on this side is further away, so I will just gently wash over that side. There is some strong green in there, you can probably see that. But just like watercolour, it will dry paler. So because that was on the far side, I've washed that side to soften it, whereas this side I've kept more of the marks. So I've done some washes around the nest and added a little bit of line work, and then my phone rang. It's a very important call about art supplies, so apologies for interrupting the film for that, but you know what it's like. I'm going to add a little bit more. This is like a purple with the Blue Acorn brand here. This wash is still quite wet where I've just done the crisscross bits. Here's a nice really wet piece, so I can show you how I can drag that out just by using the pencil to drag it out. If you need to sharpen your pencils at any point, you can use a craft knife, or if you prefer a pencil sharpener. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. You just find what works for you. The Derwent Pencil Museum had historical pencil sharpeners. Quite amazing, really. Now just in this area here is where this branch is going to go underneath this nest. So I'm just creating a little bit more depth in there with my black, and at this end. So just working into this dark shadow area just to try and get that depth somewhere in here, but I'm adding this nice sort of burnt sienna colour here. So it's another thing to notice that some colours are written on pencils just like they are on paints, and some are not. Does that make them bad? These pencils, these Blue Acorn pencils, I've found really good, but it doesn't tell me what pigment they are or what colour they are. So it's up to you. You might want a branded pencil that tells you exactly what colour you're picking up, or you might not worry. So you can see I'm starting to draw a little bit now. This is how I started art, was drawing, so it's quite almost like impulsive, you get something to hold in your hand and you just draw with it. I'm making this up, there's no reference photo for this. There are lots of photos online should you wish to do a nest and spend some time studying it. There's plenty there. So I'm getting to the point now where I'm layering with lots of marks, but I am also dragging off that masking fluid. So we're getting to the point where I need to decide, is it time to take that off? Do I want to carry on? Just have a little sit back and look. It's looking quite good. Do I need any more depth on the eggs? Maybe. Let me just have a little think. So remember I said earlier that if I wash over the eggs I'm going to lose my speckles. So I'm going to use the Blue Acorn Blue, which, let's just have a look. Blue Acorn Blue. What does that look like? Ooh, not very strong. So you have to work a lot harder to do a painting like this. But you can do it. Great for travelling. You don't want to take your pans. Now let's try the Derwent Ultramarine Blue and pop that onto my brush. How does that compare? So I would say that the Derwent is a warm blue and the Blue Acorn one is a cooler blue. You see it's got a greeny tinge to it. So I'm quite liking the Blue Acorn greeny blue because that will go well with the eggs, so that is what we're going to use. Again, I don't want too much water because I'm just at this point trying to pick up enough pigment on my brush just to go in and suggest some shadows. So I'll just take you in a bit closer for this bit. So, oops, dropped some water on. There we go. Let's just go along here. Ooh, it's quite tricky. Should have done bigger eggs, shouldn't I? I don't want to lose my speckling, but I can always go back and add it. So I'm just trying to suggest there's depth at the bottom there of the egg. Now I have got to put some in here even though I didn't really want to go there, and then a little tiny bit more in there. Now this is the tricky bit. Put my pencil down, squeeze out my brush so it's damp, blend this away as best I can. Don't want a harsh line. Actually going to lift some of that off. So I'm now using watercolour techniques that you would normally use, lifting off colour, squeeze out, clean your brush every now and again. Got a little bit of a background there, but that's fine. Let's blend this one away a little bit. That's better. Not sure it looks like an egg, looks a bit like a blue lemon. There we go. Now, speckle egg, don't lose him, but just keep that little area there a little bit darker. Could get my tiny miniature brushes out, but okay, that's okay. I'm happy with that. Still got a bit of a line on this one. Just going to work at it a little bit and use that lovely, really complicated technique called lifting out with a paper towel, just to get the top of the egg highlight back. There we go. In fact, could we speckle that while it's still damp? No, we'll leave it as it is. So that's looking quite nice. Eggs are done, not quite cooked. Now I've stopped looking at the nest. I can see that I haven't blended this bit, which just needs a little bit working into it a little bit. Now I've left it on there a while on the pencil marks, and it is definitely harder to move it once it's been sat there. But because I was looking at the eggs, I can now see that I needed to blend it away a little bit. So I'm now working some extra darks under the nest, try and deliver a little bit of depth to it. Could still do with some of that around those eggs, but I don't want to overdo it. Let's make it easier. Turn it upside down, zoom in a little bit. Try and use pencil into there a little bit, as this is watercolour pencil demonstration, like so. Even maybe just a fraction of black in there. You know, I'm going to probably end up coming in with a fine liner anyway, those of you who know me. But let's just see what happens if we do it like this. Tiny bit of blending on that, not too much. Squeezed out, damp-ish brush, try and take those lines away. You want them to be nesty looking. Turn it the right way up. That's okay, isn't it? I think the depth is almost there now. Okay. Going to let that dry, take off the masking fluid and see what we need to do after that. And this is a mask away, also known as rubber cement. I'm pretty sure it's made of the same stuff as in latex. And the idea is you just gently lift off the masking fluid. And I thought I'd try this one first because it's a lot harsher, if you like, than a finger. And I just wanted to see how much damage, if any, it does by using it on the pencils rather than a wash of watercolour underneath. So we're getting lots of white appearing now, as you can see, which is going to give us some lights, possibly too many. This is the thing, you don't quite know what's going to happen until you take it off. So with this, I always find it's best right at the end to run your fingers over, because even though that saves your fingers from hours of rubbing off masking fluid, it doesn't feel every little bit. So always clean, dry fingers, find that last little bit. So there we go, we've got some nice light sparkles here. Got a quite nice light sparkle here, so actually it's given a ring of light quite nicely. So to finish this off, I would probably go in with my black again. So we've got some very light areas here, so just do some stronger lines over. And again, I'm just going to sharpen the pencil just to get a nice point on it. So sharpened pencil, don't cover up all of those lovely white lines you just created, but embellish, follow along the sides of them, crisscross over them. Now I'm coming round to the top, so I do not want black on the top. This lovely burnt sienna can crisscross over them. Not going to put too many lines in the back, because the back is, if you think about it, further away. Although this is just a painting, it's not really further away. And so you want that to be softer to make this part seam further forward. So I'm now layering up with some of the raw sienna we started with underneath that wash. Raw sienna is such a great colour, goes so well with so many things. We've even got that peachy colour I started the eggs off with. Let's pop that on top. So that's layering a little bit over the top, not much, but it's all complexity and depth, isn't it? Let's just see what happens if I get a white. Does that run any sort of contrast? Chinese white is always a funny one, isn't it, in watercolour? Yes, we're getting some marks. Not as bright as using masking fluid, but they're there. Could perhaps even try and get a highlight on the eggs. Doesn't really add much, but it's fun to try. So there we go. I think I will stop there. Took all the masking fluid off, embellished with some nice lines on top. You can just dance your pencil about. You can draw for as long as you like, just to get the depth onto this. You could then outline the eggs if you like, get your black fine liner out. I'm so tempted to do that. But look, I'll be good, I won't. I'll just stick to the watercolours today. This is watercolour pencils. A little bit of depth here with a black watercolour pencil, very gently. And this one I won't wash away, just leave it as some marks. And I think that will do. Why don't you give a bird's nest a try with your watercolour pencils? Try washing with them, splattering with them, scraping off the tops with them with a knife so you can get some speckles, and just generally try them out in different ways. Layer them up and create your own nest painting. Nice as a housewarming present. So we've explored our pencils, we've had a play with different ones, different colours, just got a feel for them. If you're not getting the results that you thought you might, don't blame yourself. It will be your pencils are perhaps not the best pigment, perhaps not from the right manufacturer. However, if you've got them, you can always use them for something. So have a play with them, see how much they wash out, if any. If they don't, use them for embellishing and have some fun. See you all on the next video. Bye for now and happy painting. Bye.